Hi, and welcome to Two Tired Teachers. Today I am replacing the low point drain on our freshwater tank. And these, I really didn't want to replace it with the same part that came off, because this is supposed to have a little tab that came out, and when we were sanitizing, because we are getting ready to head to South Dakota, we were sanitizing our freshwater tank, and we plan on dry camping ballpark of around 3 weeks. When I went to drain the water, the tip broke off, and then the fresh water that we had put in, I wanted to drain it because it's still almost 2 weeks before we leave, and it just completely disintegrated. And I thought, okay, I need to get something underneath there that's going to be extremely reliable before we are actually dependent on this tank. Problem number one I ran into was this was put on with a pinch clamp, and it looks like this. And this one I was able to use a screwdriver and just kept wedging this higher and the plug lower and got it out. Underneath there right now there is just basically a plastic tube that connects this to the bottom of our freshwater tank. So while I'm doing this, I am replacing this, and I am going to replace that plastic tube with some reinforced hose and the clamps with these screw down clamps instead of the pinch clamps. Now, when I was looking for all of this, and I looked at Home Depot, they really didn't have anything that was going to be working, and this was, I had to buy a 10-foot section of this hose, that it was around 15 bucks. I need about 4 inches of it, so didn't really want to go there. So I ended up at Pate's Hardware, got a foot of this reinforced hose, 3 of these clamps, and although it's not what I wanted, a replacement part just like the one I took off. And the whole thing was $8 and some change. And so price-wise, I can't really beat that. But I need to get under there, and my concern is there's another one of these pinch clamps holding that little plastic tube onto the bottom of my freshwater tank. I want to be careful not to damage the freshwater tank as I try and get this off. When I was asking people at Home Depot and Pate's Hardware, how do you get these off? Nobody just came out and said good luck with that, but that's really what it boils down to. I watched a video that says you can use a screwdriver. I tried. I don't see any way to do that. One person finally told me get some metal cutters and cut straight across this part. You're cutting through 2 sections, but that's where you're going to do it. What I'm actually going to try and do, and I'll show you, is I am going to see if I can just wedge it down like I did on the other one. And what I may end up doing is just trying to cut a little slit out of the tube that's under there, so that there'll be room to slip this up before where I can get the hose out. We'll see. The problem is, honestly, I feel like while I'm doing this, I want to replace all of it, have it done right, and then when I get home and can find something better than this, or the new one, that was just $4. I can get something that's metal that's going to last a while. When this has to be replaced, because I'm replacing it with the screw on, it's not going to be any trouble to do that. So while I'm under there doing it, I feel like I might as well go on and get all of it done, because that little plastic tubing, let's face it, it's had some stress as I've been taking this off. I don't really want to depend on it when we're going to be depending on our freshwater tank. So let's get to it. Okay, mission accomplished. And honestly, when I get ready for minor repairs like this, I'll always tell myself it looks pretty simple and straightforward, but plan on it turning into a bigger deal than you had thought it was going to. This one, once I got the original piece off, man, after that it was relatively simple. The hardest part was getting that original part off. Finally wedged it down so that I could get those clamps off. You saw that top clamp, was able to get it off. Finding the parts I needed. Home Depot, like I said, I was going to have to buy 10 feet of braided line. So finding just a Pate's Hardware, able to get that, and they happen to have that RV plug. So mission accomplished. I put a couple of gallons of fresh water in there, and I'm gonna let that stay in there for a couple hours just to make sure that everything's nice and good. Then I'll go on and drain that out so that we'll start off with completely fresh water when we get ready to go on our next trip. Oh, last thing I wanted to say is, yes, I cut that braided hose, and it took a lot to cut through it, but I cut it a little bit longer than the original hose. And the reason for that is because I'm not completely positive what I'm going to replace that drain plug with. I'm going to find something that's a little more heavy duty than that at some point. And I may need a little bit longer hose. I wasn't worried about that because even though that's hanging down about a ½ an inch further than the original, it's still nowhere as far down as the bottom of this step. And so you can see it's basically, well, if I got it where it's even, you could see that that is basically the same depth as this. So, and that hose is actually flexible, so you know, if it needed to flex a little bit, it could. The other thing I'm going to mention is I have not thrown away the old plug, and the reason for that is it was holding water. So should something unforeseen happen, I would have a way to plug the tank, or if I'm out there and someone else has you know, theirs just won't plug, I would have a ugly spare part that I could give them. So anyway, this is great. It's working, and eventually I'll replace it with something metal probably, but this is holding water, and that's all there was to it, and it's just going to be a turn of the screw the next time I need to replace it. So glad I went with that reinforced hose. I think that's going to be a good choice. It's going to with all of the road grime and exposure that this gets, I think that's a much better choice. So thanks for watching. Two Tired Teachers.